What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind, and it is my distinct honor and pleasure to have a special guest tonight. We have John Champeau of Champ Games. He is the programmer of many great Atari 2600 ports, and I have a list of them here. I'm not going to go over all of them, but he was just honored for some awards at the I'm not sure if it's the Atari Age homebrew or the oh man, I forgot. I'm sorry. But anyway, he won the Elevator Agent. Elevator Agent was he won winner of the best Atari 2600 homebrew port and best Atari 2600 music and sound, and was runner up as the best Atari 2600 graphic. And Turbo Arcade was the winner of the best Atari 2600 graphic port and runner-up as the best Atari 2600 homebrew port and best Atari 2600 music and sound. And if you guys have not got a chance to check those games out, you're going to have to. But without further ado, let's bring John to the stage. And this is John. Hey, how's it going, John?
Pretty good, Phil.
I'm sorry, I kind of boogered that intro up. I apologize, but anyway.
No, that's funny. Yeah, it was the Atari Homebrew Awards. It's the annual Atari Homebrew Awards.
Now,
Zero Page Homebrew. So
Zero Page, that's right. Yeah, I keep forgetting Zero Page.
No problem.
Anyway, they actually do a lot of other homebrew stuff, not necessarily ports, and there are a lot of great homebrews. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. But what I want to do is I want to bring our co-host on here. I want to bring Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala and Brian from BD RetroMods on here, and we want to talk to you about your games. We want to talk to you about your website, and we want to talk to you maybe about some future projects. And I want to hear a little bit about not about all of it, but I want just like a Reader's Digest version of how you did some of these games, because I'm just astonished at how you've done some of these. So first of all, Mike, do you have any specific questions for?
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations for sweeping the ports category in the Atari Homebrew Awards.
Thank you very much.
Both Elevator Agent and Turbo Arcade, obviously fantastic games and very well deserving of those. Although, as I mentioned in Retro Bliss's chat earlier today, I think Turbo Arcade is rigged to cheat.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a very hard game, but Elevator Agent might be my favorite Atari homebrew of all time. I just absolutely love that game. I play it all the time.
It's great,
man. Speaking of Elevator Agent, if I'm being given the honor of asking the first question, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I am, you told me that it took you guys 6 years to, obviously not constant sitting down programming and developing, but 6 years to get Elevator Agent on the screen. And it baffles me that it's even possible on the Atari 2600. Could you give us, obviously maybe not too heavily technical, but a little idea of what went into that?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, actually, Elevator Agent, which is based on the arcade game Elevator Action. I'm sure you'll figure that out by now. Yeah, actually, it's actually been longer than that. I've been really working on it on and off for almost 20 years, actually.
Wow.
Started off way back when the CGE prototype was released back in Las Vegas. I was at the show back in 2001. The one that Atari had developed. Originally, I tried to finish that version, but I'm better at writing games from scratch than actually trying to figure out someone else's code. It's always easier to do. But anyway, so over the years, depending on the technology, I've given a few chances to try to port this game, which is fairly difficult, as you can see by the just how long it took to actually get a version that I was happy with. 2017, I was working with Daryl Spice Jr. I'm sure we all know who he is. He's developed a lot of great games for the Atari, including like Stay Frosty, Space Rocks, Draconian. He's got a bunch of other ones. But anyway, he introduced me to him and Fred Quimby and Chris Walton. They're the CDF in CDFJ, which is the driver that we use. Again, not getting too technical. Anyway, they had developed a process called bus stuffing, which is supposed to be like the very, very experimental way to write games that really allows you to make really reduces the amount of time that you use when you're making games. And using that technology, I was able to put together a pretty great demo of Elevator Agent, Elevator Action at the time. That's what happened in 2017. Unfortunately, the technology proved to be too unstable as it doesn't run on all Ataris. So it was kind of put aside. And then over the years, I've tried to reboot it here and there. Then I actually contributed to the CDF driver, which is why it's now called CDFJ. That's the J.
Okay.
Because I came up with a way to actually get more cycles, which, not to get too technical, but that's kind of what you need to make the graphics as good as possible in an Atari game. I managed a way to figure out how to get 4 extra cycles, which is what I needed to make all those color changes. So anyway, so that's why it's been 6 years, because between 2017 and 2023 also released, I think, 10 other games as well. So
yes, yeah.
So
well, let me see if I can figure out which one of mine was the favorite. Hold on. Hold on.
I don't have all of mine here. I brought some.
Yeah, I think I'm with Michael there. I think Elevator Agent is probably my absolute favorite of all of yours, and that's saying something because I love all of yours. They're just phenomenal. And I think we had this conversation during my 1,000 subscriber episode when we were talking. People go, well, why in the world would you play these games when you can play the arcade ports of them? Or not the ports, you can actually play the arcade versions now. And for me, I think back to when I was a kid and I had the 2600 and I go, man, what if I had these games back then? And I could plug these cartridges back in the 2600, so it's a nostalgia thing for me to put, Turbo Arcade in there and be able to see the graphics and to be able to play the gameplay the way that it plays. And, Elevator Agent and Wizard of War Arcade and all these great games that you have there, and go, wow, and go, dude, if we would have had these games back in the early 80s, man, there would have been no video game crash at all. So that's
well, there's something special about the magic of wrangling this piece of hardware from 1977 to do this stuff. And absolutely everybody that I've shown, both Turbo and Elevator Action, thinks it's some kind of alchemy or sorcery that's going on. So absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree. At least one of the reasons why I do it is not just because trying to get something to run on the Atari, which is a monumental task to begin with. And we were all kids. Atari 2600 was my first video game as well. So we all had dreams about when are they going to release this on the Atari, and some that were promised and came out later as prototypes. Like Elevator Action. That was one of my personal favorites as a kid. I still remember stopping by a soda shop on the way home, and they had it in a corner. I'm really dating myself calling it a soda shop there, but I get some pop and play, put a quart in the jukebox. But that's a game I always wanted to see on the Atari, so I was extra motivated to do that one. And
I got my milkshake for a nickel.
Yes, exactly. Yep, and just way games play on the Atari, the fact that it's 60 frames per second. I mean, some of its shortcomings are actually some of its strengths, where you never drop frames, you never go to 45 frames per second. It's either running 60 or it's crashing. There's no in between. So the wonderful color palette and just the way the Atari itself plays games, it's a complete unique experience. And anyone that's played our games know that we're not just sitting there trying to port a game one-to-one from what it is on MAME, because then what would be the use? I would rather play the MAME version at that point too. So, we try to offer different modes, whether it's a versus mode, a co-op mode, a challenge mode with extra levels, and things you wouldn't get in the arcade. So, you're not, and we try to design the game so that they're more playable as well, because as much as we loved arcades growing up, they were designed to make money, entertain second. So they were there to take your quarters. So, we certainly don't want to make
I don't know. I still feel like I'm losing quarters when I'm playing Turbo Arcade.
That's funny.
A few of them.
Yeah. So, we try to offer different skill levels and, just things to make the game more enjoyable for people. So
yeah, we need a baby level for me.
So let me stop you here a second, John. We have a Facebook user asking a question. First of all, I've bought all the digital releases so far, and they're all absolutely top notch. Are there any plans to support Turbo Arcade and Elevator Agent for the Harmony cart? I know that this is more of a Harmony team question, probably.
Yeah, sure. No, but I can definitely answer. I work close with the Harmony team, which is actually Fred Quimby. He's the Atari on Atari Age. He's a great guy. He's the guy that supplies me with all of my cartridge shells and melody boards, which are a melody board, if you can think of that. That's basically the board that goes inside the cartridge and holds the game. It's basically a Harmony Light in the sense that it has a lot of the same hardware, but it's meant to just run one game as opposed to, accepting an SD card and stuff like that. So anyway, so I've been working with him closely, and he knows the issue. There are some rumors out there that there's a firmware update that might be able to solve the problem, and the answer to that is absolutely not. It's not a firmware update; it's a hardware issue. The issue is just that the Harmony carts only have so much ROM on them. They can only play 32K ROM games that are melody based. So it's going to either require a new Harmony cart, which is a possibility. Fred has talked about that. Or he's also talked about perhaps developing what he's calling a Harmony expansion module, or HEM. And basically what that would sit between your Harmony cart and your Atari. So you can almost imagine you plug that in. It'd be probably about this thick. And then you plug the Harmony in that. And that would expand the capabilities of your Harmony cart at a much cheaper price. I think he talked about, don't quote me, of course, I think $20 maybe, as opposed to... if you bought a whole new Harmony, maybe $70 or $80. So people would be able to keep their existing hardware and then plug it in there. Then that little piece would be able to expand to play 64K or 128K games. So when we developed Elevator Agent and Turbo, the thought process was that we kind of got ahead of the curve. We thought we were behind the curve and that the technology would catch up to us. But one of our traits, or what Champ Games strives to do, we're always cutting edge. So it's one of the disadvantages in that is that we're a little ahead of the distribution of how to play it at home. So I know Fred is committed to doing that, and as more games like ZVS is going to be coming out, I'm trying to get.
I see something that's not hardware.
Yeah, that's Sniffles, or
Sniffles.
Misty is her real name. How it is with cats. But anyway, so so we're just a little bit ahead of the curve there as far as he's got a lot of projects going on, but he's committed to making HEMs, and also what's the one that's for the 7800? That's you guys don't know what it's called.
And that was actually going to be my question for you. Are you thinking about the 7800 game drive, or are you thinking of the Concerto?
The Concerto, yeah, the Concerto. So he's also developing CEMs as well, so to expand the Concerto as well. So it's along the same lines. One of the cool advantages about the HEM that he described to me is that, it'll be something where you can load a game onto the HEM and then take your Harmony out, and then that HEM, which will be about this big, acts as like a standalone cartridge, so you could load any game onto it and then just play it. So that's kind of. But anyway.
But and that's where I was going to ask was just, and you might not know, and that's fine. Is like, I know with the recent release of like the 7800 game drive that does a lot more, has a lot more features to it. Do you know if these would eventually maybe work on that, or if they've maybe contacted you on anything like that to try to get your games to work with it?
No one's contacted me on that, but I think the whole point is, a lot of our games, the reason why they don't work on these other carts like that, and I don't know the game specifically, but I know like the Uno and Plus cart, is that they all have ARM chips in them to run these games. We actually utilize the ARM chip for our game themselves. original intention of the Harmony was to be able to run, games and emulate bank switching models. But the brilliant people that developed it, like Chris, Daryl, and Fred, came up and said, "Hey, this ARM chip that we have in here isn't really doing much after it emulates the bank switching and runs the games. Why can't we try to utilize this while you're actually running a game to expand the capabilities of what the developer has access to, whether that's more RAM or ROM or more cycles?" And that's kind of where CDFJ and DPC Plus were. Now, its original intention was to emulate not only bank switching schemes, but also emulate DPC, which is a programming chip that was done by David P. Crane. That's what DPC stands for Pitfall 2. Because prior to that, things like the Crocodile cart, and again, I'm probably dating myself, there were other multi-carts that were released prior to the Harmony, and none of them could run Pitfall 2 because none of them could emulate that chip. So anyway, so that's a long and short of it. So that's basically, so as far as we are actually, there is a possibility that we may be able to get our games running on the Uno and the Plus cart, which would be very nice. But as far as the game drive is concerned, I don't know enough about it to comment, but certainly, if there is an opportunity to do that, they can reach out to me, or, I would be more than happy to work with them as I'm working with the people that do the Plus and the Uno card to try to get our games running.
Now, let me interrupt you there real quick. We have a question that's been on the screen here for a bit, but before we ask that question, I want to pose something now. I want to answer this question, and then I want to ask John a question about the Atari 2600 Plus, because we're asked this all the time when we stream your games on the channel. But right now, Poe is asking, does your games play on the Atari Game Station Pro? It depends on the game. Most of them do not. Like Conquest of Mars, Avalanche does, I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
It does, and
okay.
the original Ladybug, and the reason why is just because those games don't use the ARM chip. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten lazier. And lazier means I'm using, this advanced technology, because it's just, if anyone can attest to it, writing games in assembly is at least to me, it's very stressful, time consuming, and can get
anything to make you get the games out quicker, man. We'll pay a little extra if it, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm Father Time is not on any of our sides, especially Phil. It's like, there's so many games I want to do. I'm 55 years old. If I want to even do 10% of those,
you're still wet behind the ears, man.
Exactly. 10% of those games, I need to be making, I want to be making 2 games, at least releasing 2 games a year, and I wouldn't be able to do that.
So what about the 2600 Plus? Will you explain to people why? Now there are Conquest of Mars works, Ladybug works. I think Avalanche works. I don't have the cart for that. But
yes, I believe it does.
Same reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. But interestingly enough, there is someone I've been working with that I sold him. He bought a bunch of my cartridges and ROMs, and he's actually been able to get almost all the ROMs working on the 2600 Plus. But it's kind of a hack. But a cool one. What he does is that the issue is that the game can't be dumped. The way it's stored on a Melody card or Melody board, it can't be read by the ROM dumper. So if anyone knows what the 2600 Plus is, and I'm not putting it down, I think it's a very good piece of hardware, and I think it's great for what it's intended to do. Is that it basically, when you put a cartridge in, it has a ROM dumper that reads that ROM the best it can and copies the file onto, a hard drive inside of it, and then runs Stella. So it's basically what we do when we run a game off Stella. But it does it seamlessly so that, people that aren't technically inclined or looking for something that's a little bit, easier to use can do that. And the compatibility is actually really good. I think it's actually pretty good. The issue is that games that are stored on the Melody cart, the ROM dumper just can't read that. So there's 32K of code there for Gorf Arcade. It can't read it all. I don't know if it can read any of it, to be honest with you. But what this guy did is that he took a 32K ROM of Gorf and he burns it onto a 32K EEPROM, just a plain one. So there's no ARM chip. Remember, it doesn't use the ARM chip in the cartridge. It's using the emulated ARM chip that's Stella emulates. So all you need to do is get that 32K over to the 2600 plus hard drive, and it should be able to run it as long as Stella can run it. And they have Stella 6.7, so it can run it. So all he does is he just takes the game code, copies it to 32K EEPROM, puts it in a cartridge, slaps on a Gorf Arcade label and puts it in. And then Stella can read that 32K off of the regular EEPROM, and then Stella detects it as a CDFJ plus game and runs it properly.
So based on what you just said, it sounds to me like that at some point in time, we're going to hear from Atari Age a hack that where we can just maybe load your ROMs and play your games on.
Yeah, possibly. It is a slippery slope, though, because what will happen is you'll have a cartridge out there that only runs on the a 2600 plus. Because if you put that in a regular Atari is going to say, well, here's a 32K game. Where's my ARM chip to actually run this thing? There is no ARM chip on that cartridge. And it's stored differently, so it's not going to work. So it's either. So I think it's more of a cool hack than anything. It's nothing, maybe I had a fleeting moment of thinking, well, maybe I'll sell just cartridges that are labeled 27 plus only. But I quickly decided against that for the reason that, once it leaves my hands, who knows what happens to it? And then what's going to happen is you're going to get people getting a game that says Gorf Arcade. Hey, this doesn't work on my regular Atari. Oh, that's a 2600 plus version. And it offer more confusion. I think the real solution is to wait for Atari. And what I understand, Fred, the Atari guy who wrote this stuff, is working with Atari and Al over Atari Age. They're all working very hard to see if they can actually update the ROM dump to actually just read the code off of a regular Gorf Arcade cartridge or a Wizard of War cartridge, and just so the ones that are out there will work too. So
that would be awesome.
So it is cool. So if you have the skills to do it, I think it's fairly easy. Like I said, if you can burn a 32K ROM, you have one, just do it yourself. You have the ROM, just do it yourself. But I wouldn't recommend like opening up a shop and selling them.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before. In boxes like the 2600 plus, there's two potential points of failure. It could be a failure in emulation or a failure in the ROM dump. It's a two-stage process.
Yep.
So that's why Carl O here talked about the Retron 77. You can get the demo ROMs from Champ Games sites, put them on an SD card, and try them on your Retron 77 to see if the ROMs themselves will play, which I believe they all do.
Yeah, well, they don't. Yeah, they don't always. They don't all, and the reason why is because at some point the Stella team went on hiatus, a well-deserved break, and they stopped porting the Stella core to the Retron 7 after Stella 6.6. And fortunately or unfortunately, our last 4 games, basically I use a template, and my template now it requires CDFJ plus because I just want it to be always using the latest and greatest. So Gorf Arcade kicks, actually Gorf Arcade may work, because even though I'm using CDFJ plus, I'm not using any of the CDFJ plus features that are needed, because I didn't need it for that particular one. I did need it for kicks. I certainly needed it for Elevator Agent. And Turbo, unfortunately, Turbo actually may work. It's because I'm not using
Turbo does work on the Retron 70. I played it.
Really?
Okay, good. So that's good to hear.
I played the demo ROM. I don't know.
I don't think the retail will. And I will tell you about 6.6 versus 6.7 on the Retron 77. I can't remember his last name, but I reached out to one of the developers of Stella. His name was Christopher somebody. I can't remember his last name offhand. But he said that they have not abandoned the Retron 77 development of Stella. However, they've kind of put it on pause. So they're not really actively doing anything to update it to the current 6.7 version. So if people are waiting for that to be updated, it's not going to happen anytime soon.
You might be waiting a while.
Yeah. So thank you, Ricardo. I appreciate you. You too, and Television Gamer.
Yes, and
Okay.
guys, I'll make sure that Phil makes sure that we all get our cut of that.
Yeah. Well, Brian's already got his cut. I don't owe him
Oh,
anything.
yeah, it all goes to Brian. It all
I don't
goes to
know. I
Brian.
mean, I think you gave as much to me as you have to John. So I mean,
That's true. That's
Probably.
true. John's got his
Probably.
cut and Brian's got his cut. I think I owe all that to Mike. So anyway, I do have a question from one of our viewers. His name is Operation Shutdown. He is one of our near and dear subscribers to the channel. He jumps on every time almost when he can. And Robert De Crescenzo, it's about him. The question is about Robert. And Robert's going to be on our podcast in 2 weeks. He's going to be in your seat, John. And but the question was about Bob and how it is to work with them and how you guys got together and what it's like working with Bob and all that. So tell us about your relationship with Bob De Crescenzo.
Oh, sure, definitely, yeah. No, Bob is wonderful. Bob and I have been friends for probably 20 years. Yeah, he's like the nicest guy for sure, and one of the most talented developers I've ever worked with. So, yeah, Bob used to be an East Coaster. Or he's still an East Coaster, but he used to live in Long Island, where it's, for people who don't know New England, I'm in Connecticut. Long Island's right below us. So he used to have an annual game night, Atari game night, and my friend Alan's actually he lives in Connecticut. He's a 5200 guy though, so let's not hold that against him. I
System's good, controllers suck.
Yeah, I love the 5200, so I'm not putting it down. And one day I will develop for that because that was my first. That's where I got my development chops started, was on the 800 way back when. So, but anyway, we used to go down and visit Bob and have that. We actually went to a couple Philly classics for those who ever made that. That was a wonderful retro expo that was in Philadelphia. We loved it. It was awesome. I really enjoyed that, and I could actually drive to it. So anyway, Bob and I went to that a few times. He also he got involved in my first game, or one of my first games, Ladybug. He did the music for that. So we've been working together for a while, yeah, and so that's so Bob and I still keep in touch. I've seen him at a couple of expos. And he's done work on a lot of my games, Gorf Arcade, Kicks. I know there's a ton more, like Scramble, Super Cobra Arcade, Ladybug Arcade. Obviously, we used the sounds for that. So yeah, no, he's wonderful. And I'm actually supposed to be talking to him in the next few days as well. We're trying to work out a 7800 deal where maybe we might be able to publish some of his games. That would
be exciting. That's one thing that we were going to
fantastic.
try to talk to him about, because his games are too good to be sitting out there not to be distributed. So we do have a question about your games from Go Game Go, who has a great channel, by the way, if you guys want to check it out. But he wants to know why some of your games are named the actual game arcade names and some are not, like Galagon instead of Galaga.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, basically, we probably should not be using the real name for any of our games. Certainly the way, this is all just to start off as a little hobby, and things like Ladybug, even like Conquest of Mars. Originally, that was called Caverns of Mars, based on the 8-bit version. And it all depends on when the name gets changed. It's always been because Atari Age asked us to change it, because they were liable if something happened. If someone reached out with cease and desist or whatever may happen, if someone decides that, hey, you're selling 50 copies of a game that and you're using the name of our game, so we got to shut you down. Some company may do that. If they do, that's what would happen. So in Al's case, he would have like 500 copies of printed copies of Galaga, and then Namco comes and says, well, you can't sell anymore, and now he's stuck with 500 copies that he can't. So it's anyway, so that's kind of where things start. So originally, it's it's kind of been a fluid situation, as you could see. Like Atari Age was publishing, ports for over 20 years, and then something comes along and they decide not to do anymore. And that's just the way it is, And when back in the early 2000s, it's like I've said this on a few podcasts, not podcasts, but interviews, or when people ask me this question, is that the Atari community and the homebrew community in particular has gotten too big for its own, whatever. It's gotten too big in the sense.
It's gotten big enough to be noticed.
Yes, exactly. So 20 years ago, no one really cared that, hey, I came out with a version of XYZ and I'm going to sell 50 copies to Atari Age, and no one really cares at that point. But we're a victim of our own success, as they say. So
yeah.
So anyway, so as far as what we do going forward, we're not going to come out with Donkey Kong or Pac-Man, but if it's a more obscure game where the risk is low, certainly I know from experience that changing the name isn't going to save you in court. That's for sure.
No,
you can call it whatever you want, but if you're using, if you're making a game based off an IP without the license, you put yourself at risk. So I think it's a small risk, and hopefully, most companies will look at this and say, hey, it's not worth it. These guys are just basically doing it's for love of the game on an obscure 50-year-old platform and selling very minimal copies. There's no revenue being taken away from any of these companies. It's basically just a love letter. If most companies will see it like that. Some of them won't, and those that won't, if whatever comes that way, it'll just be okay. Well, the games gets taken out, and we move on. So we're not trying to piss anyone off or cause any issues. We just, we just, whatever. I'm not going to say it's the right thing to do, but I'm not going to say I'm sitting here, murdering puppies or anything like that either.
Yes.
Somewhere in between. So.
In that vein, sorry, Phil, I just have a question kind of based off of that. Obviously, you have a passion for these old arcade games and
yes.
A passion for the ports. Has there, and I know, like, on the credits of a lot of these games, like, it's not just you. You work with Bob, you work with other people to do music, some graphics, other things, like you do collaborate on your games.
Yep.
Has there been any thought put into, there are a lot of homebrew games that maybe have great ideas, great original ideas, but maybe not the programming chops for them to be executed as well as they could possibly be. Has there been any thought of maybe collaboration on some original games?
Yeah, well, I have my own original games out, we've come up with that I've been working on as well. So, even though I love ports, the main reason is because I'm an engineer at heart. I'm not a game designer at heart. So porting a game or a conversion, someone corrected me on Facebook or sometime letting me know this. They're not ports, they're conversions. So if we want to be completely correct, we should probably say that. But anyway, so I look at it as an engineering problem. So how am I going to get elevator agent or elevator action to run on 2600 with 2 sprites, limited resolution, 76 cycles per scan line, etc. So that's why I enjoy doing ports, because they are an engineering. See, I said it again. I see them as an engineering.
On this podcast, we're okay with ports.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Convergence.
It's fewer letters in the description too when you're typing it in on YouTube. So
yeah, exactly. So anyway, but with that said, even though they are conversions and we're trying to make them as close, at least capture the spirit of the original game, we do, and especially in the latest releases we've done, the last 4 or 5 releases, we are trying to expand that by being original, by adding different levels,
the challenge modes and
gameplay elements. I think
I love
that's pretty,
it. I love them. Excellent.
Yeah, so that's one thing. I do have some original games. I know probably not all sports fans here, but I've always loved computer sports. So we have a baseball game that we've started, a hockey game that we started. So those won't be ports. We've also I designed a game way back in 1982 called Mountain Raider, which can be best described as a combination of hero, defender, cosmic arc, berserk, and about 4 other games. But it's kind of a action adventure game that Nathan and I have already started on, which is looking amazing.
And with all those combined, that's going to be 256K cartridge, or
yeah, no, it just borrows elements from all of them. So again, I should probably also say that basically with what we had talked about with the Harmony, until some kind of I probably wouldn't have worked on Elevator Agent and Turbo Arcade knowing that Harmony support wasn't going to be soon after. So it just happened to be 2 games I was working on. I was more or less expecting it to be done. So with that said, all of our games moving forward will probably be 32K, so they run on the Harmony until we get some kind of confirmation or timeline as to when a suitable way to play these games, because we want people to be able to buy the ROM and play on their system, and it becomes a kind of a headache on our end where when we're trying to sell these games, say why doesn't it work on this? These are kind of conversations we'd rather not be having, and it just confuses people in the long run.
So I don't want to. Let's. We have a few questions. Jerome is actually asking, what if Atari approached you, John, and asked you to work for them? What would you do?
Not sure. I mean, to be honest with you, I like working for myself, and I'd be flattered, of course. I mean, I think I've also said on a few interviews that my dream job was to work for Atari. To be that guy. I think I missed my window by like 5 years because when Atari was in its heyday, I was 12 years old. So I would have been the Doogie Howser of the Atari world.
And
so
absolutely corrupted based on stories that I've heard of Atari.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway,
Tell Todd Fry to do something with that Pac-Man.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think I would have done pretty well in that environment, or at least I kid myself into thinking I would have. But anyway, so certainly the opportunity to work for Atari, I think what Atari is doing right now is great. I think they're, I think they've turned the corner. I'm not going to sit here and go over the long history of Atari and their ownership changes and what they focused on, but I've really liked what they've been doing the last year. The 27 Plus, I think, is a step in the right direction. Focusing on physical cartridges. I even have the Atari VCS, to be honest with you. I think that's a pretty cool machine. So I like where they're going, and whether I would ever work for them, I don't think they would approach me. I think I'd probably be, damaged goods at this point, because I am in kind of a black market doing unauthorized ports. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I also.
So what's Atari age though when they bought them?
Yeah, exactly. But Al basically had to give all that up. I don't.
He had to get that side of it up.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do that. So even though I'd be flattered, I'd probably have to turn them down. But who knows? Maybe there would be they do sell 2 of my games, Conquest of Mars and Avalanche, which surprisingly, I would think they would have reached out to me by now, which they have not. I've never actually talked specifically to Atari. My guess is that they just told Al, you can keep these games in the store because they're our property. But personally, I would like to see Conquest of Mars released as it originally was, which would be Caverns of Mars. I would certainly be open to that if they would approach me to say, hey, because I still the Caverns of Mars title screen is still in the ROM. I just hit it, and it used to say copyright Atari because I originally developed Conquest of Mars for Atari. I mean, Caverns of Mars for Atari under Kurt Mendel. God rest his soul. He passed away about 5 years ago, but he was with Legacy Engineering, the architect behind the Flashback 2. This is all 15, 20 years ago. And I worked with him, and I wrote Caverns of Mars for Atari, which was supposed to be included on the Flashback, which it never was. So, but anyway, so I would be open to that. Even Avalanche was originally done for Atari. Again, had an Atari copyright on it. And fortunately, what seems to happen is that, at least back then, whoever was running Atari, those things would just get left by the wayside. And then I'd have the decision, do I just let this code rot, aka Lunar Lander, which I do have a Lunar Lander port that I've written for Atari, which I haven't released, or do I move ahead and release it under a different name and at the time. Kurt
Excuse me.
actually suggested that I release it as Conquest of Mars. So anyway, so that's kind of it's a long-winded answer, but so again, I have nothing against Atari. I'd be flattered if they asked, and if we could work out something where I could write a game for them, I'd certainly entertain the thought, and if they would have me, but we'll see if we ever get to that point. Another sticking point is that I write games that don't work in their system. That would be like, it's like oil and water at that point. Until they get that sorted out, wouldn't it be like
Atari cannot release any Atari 2600 game that does not run on the Plus.
Yeah,
that would
and
be
of course,
stupid.
Yeah, and of course, I have the ability and the capability to write games that could run on their system. Ladybug and Conquest of Mars are 16K games that can run on anything. So I could do that if need be, but we'll see. There's a lot of other people that I'm sure can fill that role as well.
So what about pinball? People want to know if you have any plans or thoughts about doing a pinball game for the 2600. That might be interesting.
Of a real life pinball machine. Try replicating that. If anybody can do it, I'm sure John can.
Yeah, I mean, I do like pinball. I actually have one of those Legends pinball arcade. I don't know. Have you guys seen this thing? It's like a virtual. pinball.
Yeah.
I love it. My fiance Maureen, she loves pinball as well. But honestly, I probably wouldn't write a pinball game just because I have so many other projects in the works. And as much as I like pinball, I like playing it, but I don't think I would enjoy. And I went to school for computer science, and I was a math major, so I could certainly figure out the all the algorithms needed for pinball if I needed to. But because I am actually using that kind of math in my baseball game, where it's actually using physics to determine the flight of the ball and some of that. So, but I don't think it would be very low in the priority. So let's just say that. So.
I imagine there's some of those physics in your hockey game too, where the puck collides with the boards or whatever. And which, by the way, as a Canadian, I am super excited about the potential of finally getting a good hockey game on the 2600.
Yeah, I just got to convince Nathan Shrum. I know we talked about people I collaborate with, and certainly Nathan Shrum should be at the top of that list. He's been involved in all of my games. He's done all the graphics. He's done other things such as the sound in Turbo. He also did the speech in Gorf Arcade. He's also involved in all of the design of the game itself, and he took the lead on all the publishing. So he's basically a family member as far as Champ Games is concerned, and that's how we view him. So, but anyway, he's not a hockey fan. That's probably his only downfall. So,
I'm calling him.
Yeah. No, but he is a baseball fan, and that's why we should be making some progress on Champ Sports.
That's
baseball.
a priority.
And I think once we have the Champ Sports series kicked off, I think hopefully that, and depending on how that's received by the community, I would definitely. I have started hockey, just so you know. I started it back in 2003. That's actually the first game. I've always wanted to write a hockey game, so that's the first game I ever started for an Atari. And
21 years of development.
Yes, exactly. I've worked on it on and off here and there, but I did reboot it about last year, and right now it's just using the sprites, more detailed sprites that are used in Activision's hockey. So the same players but more colors. So it's nice big players, and it's a scrolling screen. And it's 5-on-5. It's going to have team selections and penalties.
If you need any help, any like game tester help or something, I do a lot of that for the Intellivision community. I'm happy to game test hockey for you.
I'm right here, Mike. I'm right here.
Are you a hockey fan, Phil?
Well, I will be.
I'm Canadian. Hockey takes priority.
Hey.
So.
Hey, John, I have a question from Darren McCowan from the UK. We got people from the UK watching this.
All right.
Yeah, he's asking if there are any games from back in the day that when you look at them with today's eyes, you look at them and say, how in the heck did they do that? Working with the limitations that they had of the day.
Let's see. I would have to say Pitfall 2 really amazed me. And still does. I mean, I just think that's an amazing game. It's not my type of game as far as even though I've always been intrigued by Pitfall and Pitfall 2, it's just those aren't my kind of games, but I was always impressed by them. I certainly played them a lot, but so those are probably the two that come to mind immediately when I think of Atari. But then when I got back, like when I was in college, which would have been 1986, 87, a friend had an Atari 2600, and I played some of the later releases that I hadn't seen because I defected from the 2600 scene probably in '82 when I got my 800 XL, which has amazing games in it. You know, that's when I started developing at like age 14.
Computer Master Race.
Exactly. So that's so I'd missed like the 2 or 3 years of Atari age releases, and then I saw things like Pole Position, which I think is amazing for the 2600. It's not perfect, but given the limitations they had, I thought that came out great. So yeah, so those Solaris as well. Or Solaris, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that was a late release.
And speaking of pinball, I don't think I could actually outdo Midnight Magic. I think Midnight Magic is amazing.
That's what someone said in the chat too.
Yeah, when I get back into the Atari again, back in 2000, and got some of the newer games, that one, and also Karate Champ. Is that what's called? The one with the one that I think what's his name? Dan Kitchen wrote, didn't he? The karate game.
Anyway.
Was it Karateka?
No, not Karateka.
No.
Not Karate Champ. What's it called?
I know
for the 2600.
Kung Fu Master.
Yeah, Kung Fu Master. That's it.
Yeah. I thought the graphics on that are amazing. So, yeah.
I was actually really impressed with late games, Rampage and Double Dragon.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
On the 2600, I'm just like, I mean, neither of them are particularly great games, but it's very impressive on the 2600 for back in the day.
Yeah, he's looking at it from a player's point of view. The sprites are horrible. You know, the sounds are suspect, but as far as gameplay, it's a playable game for a 2600.
Yeah.
You know, in relationship to the arcade version is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We have a gentleman asking, and this is something that we were going to ask you. Other than some of the things that you've been working on, what are some other things that you might have coming down the pike as far as games are concerned that you can reveal on the show?
Yeah, sure.
Two were in the chat earlier today.
Yeah, so we're working on, and this has been a part of my Atari Age signature for a while, and I think I even it was showing on Zero Page Homebrew at some point. It's Tutankhamun arcade, which is basically just going to be a arcade. Just so everyone knows, the arcade is just something we add on if it's a game that was previously released for the Atari to distinguish it from it. And plus, our goal when we do it is just because it's a game we enjoyed, but we think it could be done better on the Atari using the latest technology. So it's not in any way meant to diss the original game or put down the program or anything like that, because, I'm an engineer, software engineer, who deals with, limitations of technology or budgets or time schedules and everything like that as well. So I have complete respect for what, these developers had to endure during the 80s to get these games out.
The original Wizard of War is a fantastic game. This is a better version, but it doesn't mean that the original wasn't great.
Right. And the only reason why, just so you know, Wizard of War is one of my favorites from back in the day. I have very fond memories playing with my brother. Is that I have terrible eyesight, as you can tell, I'm squinting the whole time. Is that the flicker in that game was just too bad for me to play it. I liked it, but I just couldn't play it any because of that. So that's one of the main reasons why I rebooted that back in 2006, and I started a version just to reduce the flicker. That was my only intention, but it got dropped. I went on hiatus for about 8 years. Then when I came back, I got introduced to the dark side by Daryl, which is the this whole ARM development and using extra chips. So then when I was able to do Wizard of War, I was able to do a real proper arcade version with better graphics, better sounds, less flicker, all the cut screens, and even voice as well. So using the Atari box. So that's anyway. So that's what was the question? I mean,
But yeah, like the upcoming games. I
Oh,
distracted you with that. I apologize.
so Tutankhamun's. I played that back in Florida. I remember first time I traveled way back when to see my uncle. My brother and I played it at an arcade, and I played that numerous times. I always thought it was a very cool game, and I think the Atari version, I think they did pretty well considering the limitations. But I think we can, using the latest technologies, we'll be able to bring a better version. And right now, it's looking pretty good. Nathan's done all the graphics. I found a sound guy today, which is he's gonna help with all the music, and so it's gonna have full scrolling. There's actually we're gonna have different dungeons. It's gonna be a pretty cool conversion. So that we're hoping to plan. Our plan is to release that one this year, probably over the summer if all goes well. And then we have another secret game that unfortunately I can't reveal right now, but I can tell you that it plays best with 2 joysticks. So that's all I can tell you. Which we plan on releasing at PRGE.
I have just the controller you need.
Yep.
Right, Brian?
Yep.
Another game we had announced is a ripoff. That's a game I started back in 2006. That's probably not much to look at as far as the graphics department, but again, it's one of those nostalgic games that my brother and I used to play at a local fair here every year, and it's really a great 2-player game. But we have some good plans on that one to expand it to actually 4-player, and also using the Quadtari. For those who don't know, a Quadtari is a device that I was actually involved in the design and development of, that allows you to plug 4 joysticks into an Atari for 4-player games. It's great, by the way, if you're going to play co-op Robot War with dual sticks for both players. Just a little plug there. But anyway, so Ripoff is a game that we're finally going to complete because I started it in 2006 and give that its due. So I'll be able to play with my brother comes to PRG with me and every year, so we'll be able to play together at there. So I'm looking forward to that. So, and then we have 3 other games in the pipeline. One I mentioned has dual sticks. Another one is to play a service merchandise that was a store up here in the East Coast on a VIC-20. So if that gives any hints, these are all ports, by the way. And the last one's a very obscure port, but it's become a little bit more famous for the last couple weeks for any reason. But that's the only hint I can give. But,
famous.
Yeah, maybe.
What's
anyways,
famous the last couple? It's got to be.
Mr. Baseman put a good guess for the dual stick game. I'll say that. Because I was kind of thinking that one myself.
This one or
no, up one.
Frogs and flies, no.
No.
Man, it might be Space Dungeon. That's the game that's on the 5200, right?
Yeah.
Space
Yeah.
Dungeon? Okay, yeah. It's definitely a dual stick. That's a fun one to play too. So.
Well, now we have a game to play.
Oh man, I haven't played a version of Sinistar that I can do anything with.
I think someone's actually working on. I probably shouldn't be saying this because it might be a secret, but I think someone was working on a Sinistar update. So that'd be cool because I think the prototype that Atari released was actually pretty good. I don't know if any of you have ever played it, but anyway, so I think an enhanced version of that would be pretty cool. And just so you know, Tutankhamun Arcade will also be played best with 2 sticks as well. The original arcade, I think it had 2 sticks as well, because you can fire left and right. You can't fire left and right at the same time. So I had 1 stick to move and 1 stick.
So between Tutankhamun, Robotron, and this mystery upcoming game, everybody should be calling Brian for his twin stick controllers.
Which, by the way, I've done a review on that stick, but you can actually see that stick in action in my review of Robot War 2684 by Champ Games that is also on my channel. So,
cool.
And the Quatari is also in that review. What you do is you hook up the controllers, one stick for each. There are four ports, and then you put 1 stick in each port, and then I happen to have one here, an Atari Vox.
Yep.
In one there, and it'll save your high scores, so you can still save your high scores.
Hey Brian, after this, you should give me the information on that dual stick controller, because on my webpage, like the Robot War, I have sponsors, not really sponsors, just people that I recommend, like how to play Robot War or any of my games. So it's good. Like I have a guy that up in Massachusetts, actually, he's actually drivable from where I am at, and he does great jobs on making couplers, like to hold like two joysticks together. So I
Oh yes, Caleb.
yeah, Caleb. Yeah, Caleb has actually come down
Yeah.
here. So yeah, we met before I went to PRG. He drove down here, and I also have like Ed Ladden's sticks on there as well. So Retro Game Boy also does a great Robot War, like control pad. So if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to put a link to your controllers on my page as well. So
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I appreciate that.
yeah, because we want everyone playing Robot War with two joysticks, because that's the best way to play it.
Oh,
sure.
of course. I did see maybe, because I know we're getting close to the end here. I'm sure everybody has a wish list of games that Champ Games would do, and I saw one in the chat, and it's one for me too. I would absolutely love a version of Time Pilot that used either the driver controller or the paddle controller, and actually had the falling parachute guys. That's
cool.
my dream. That's my dream from Champ
That
Games.
would be nice. That
Yeah.
would be nice.
Okay, that's good. I have played Time Pilot. I
love that game, man. We played that on the channel.
Yeah, I played that actually at the same fair I used to play Ripoff at, and I recall vividly playing it and being very bad at it. But it was back then.
Tough game, but
if you guys remember how it was, you had like 4 quarters and you wanted to spend them. So I'd spent mine on like Vanguard or something that I was actually very good at, or Pole Position or Commando, which is actually one of my favorites.
yeah, because you wanted your game to last.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I did give Time Pilot a few tries, and actually it is a really cool game. So, and I think actually the Atari 2600 version was pretty decent as well.
2600 version is pretty good, but it's missing the parachute guys, and it's a joystick game, which makes the moving around a little like not as seamless.
Yep, I hear you. So, and now that I had driving controller experience after doing Turbo.
Oh, of course. And I think driver controller over paddle controller, because it doesn't stop. You can keep turning it.
Yep, yeah.
So Mr. Baseman wants you to do Journey.
Journey is probably
Journey
my
Escape?
favorite. Yeah, it's probably my favorite group of all time. I'm actually going to go see them in concert with my son and daughter in August.
Love Journey.
With Def Leppard and Heart. So that's going to be a pretty cool show. So, but
Nice.
yeah, I probably won't be making a Journey game. I can only handle one lawsuit at a time. I don't need I don't need the Journey band coming after me too. So,
Well,
anyway.
I think we're about ready to wrap up. What do you think? It's been about an hour.
Oh, do you guys have a wish? I gave a wish to John. Everybody should give a wish to John, I think.
Yeah,
Well, so I guess not necessarily wish, but I guess just kind of a question, because again, I know you all your stuff so far, which has been great, it's on the 2600, and and I know Bob is big on the 7800. Tons of great games he's made.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever thought about dabbling into like the 7800 with some of your stuff? Or
Yeah, no, I've considered. I've had people approach me about, can you get into the 7800 or can you get into the 5200? And honestly, I'd probably get into the 5200 and 800 first. And the only reason is because, like I said, that's where I cut my teeth way back when. It was only basic games. I still have them on disc. And, making a proper Atari 800 game, I think, would be really fulfillment of one of my dreams. So it's what I really always wanted to do. And the 5200, as much as we were just joking about it, I personally thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread when I saw that thing. And I never had any issues with the controllers, to be honest with you. So I have one, and I love it. And yeah, and I've looked at the 7800. I've even tried to get into the coding. Bob has sent me some source code, and I've tried to assist him on a few things, but it's there's a learning curve there, and sometimes it does just become teach an old dog new tricks. It's they say that for a reason, because it's mostly because of time. It's like, do I want to spend 6 months trying to figure out how to make 700 games when I can spend that 6 months making 3 other 2600 games? And when I have a list that's literally, I think we have like 27 games that we have started or talked about or designed that are in the hopper. I could be working now to the rest of my life. God willing.
And if we had our way, you would be.
Yeah, exactly. So, at some point, I might just retire too. Just say, hey, I've been doing this. Literally, I've been making ports of games since 1982, and actively since in the Champ programming days. For those who don't know, I used to make DOS ports of games starting in 1992. So it's literally been 30 years I've been doing this.
Yeah, Operation Shutdown mentioned that earlier in the chat. He said he was playing back in the 90s.
Yep, exactly. So, I've been doing this forever. So, and, something that obviously I'd love to do, but who knows? One day I might wake up and say, I want to be an electrician, or I want to start painting. Who knows?
And then you're going to have a lineup of people in their front door being like, no, sit down at the computer.
Yeah, it's going to be like Misery. If anyone's seen that movie, I'm going to get hobbled. And,
yes.
People are going to force me to, I told you to make this game.
So before we leave, we didn't really talk about your website. We got to do that real quick. And speaking of Operation Shutdown wants to know if you're going to have any of Retro Bliss's gameplay on the Champ Games website. That's what he's asking. I'm just.
I don't know.
I didn't pay.
Actually, I think you paraphrased that wrong. He's saying.
Well, he's saying on the channel.
He's asking for John to give you some tips, because apparently he's ripping on your gameplay.
Because you don't.
Because I tried to
read the trap. Because we.
All right, I've read it wrong. I read it wrong.
When we tell you, how
he does give me tips. He does give me tips.
I want people to get good at our games. And Mike, just so you know, it's as difficult as Turbo is. Nathan McAllister, one of my testers, he finished the race. So he
beat all 99 levels.
He got 99 levels, and it's possible. It's just you can't drive.
I've gotten to like 15.
Yeah, you can't drive full bore. So it's basically it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's the best way to describe it. That you just gotta. There's a way to get through every level. And
Do I look like a marathon kind of guy to you?
Well, you could be. Drop a few pounds, and you'll find out what happens after level 99. So win-win.
There you go.
So your website is champ.games. You can go to any browser and just type in champ.games. And
yep, exactly. There's no com, there's no nothing after it. We were one of the lucky ones that once they released the .games suffix, or domain, we jumped on it. So just champ.games, you can download all of our demos, and we, for convenience sake, we've put all the demos into one huge zip file now, so you can just download them all for PAL or NTSC. And then, of course, there's information about all the games. Each game has its own dedicated page that tells you about its features, what it offers, and screenshots and things like that. And of course, we have our store. It's, we got to plug that at least a little bit. Keeps us in business.
Of course.
But, anyway, yeah. So originally, we were just offering digital copies of our games, and we've been doing that since 2000, and I don't know, like 3 years, whatever it's been. But if anyone doesn't know, originally all of our games were available in the Atari store.
Hey.
Yeah, but you know what?
Exactly.
These are the actual Champ Games versions.
All right. Awesome.
Not the Atari Age versions.
I don't care. Come see me.
Yeah.
When you get this, come see me.
Yep. Wonderful. So anyway, and again, but of course, I appreciate everything Al ever did for us, and I'm happy that he's been able to take a direction that he really wants to be in. We all want to be in support of the new Atari and get them, to be, what we've always want them to be. So good on Al, and I certainly understand what he had to do. That kind of just opened up an opportunity for us and a decision whether we would be publishing ourselves. And so half my time is now spent publishing, which is why, uncharacteristically, I didn't have any work in progresses for the show, the award show this year. Usually we have one or two in the hopper. But honestly, the last 6 months have been a real stressful time for me. I also moved too. I moved to back to my hometown. So right now I'm about 100 yards away from where I first played Atari as a little boy. So believe it or not. So
That's awesome.
so yeah, but it's been a stressful time. But the good news is that we working with Nathan Strum again. I mentioned him. He took the lead on the publishing. He found a local publisher to him in Seattle, literally within driving distance, and they've been great. So we've been able to produce. If you guys see the proofs in the pudding, I think the product that we put out is certainly rivals Atari Age. Again, we followed Atari Age's footprint. You follow the experts, and Al has been very gracious in helping us make that transition. So thanks to him.
That's incredibly clear because the packaging is identical. The insert that holds the cartridge, everything.
Yep, exactly. So so thanks to Al, and thanks obviously to Nathan for that. So anyway, on our website, we do offer the physical copies. We do try to get those processed weekly, sometimes daily. Sometimes you'll order, like a guy ordered a game. He just happened to order on the day I was shipping. So he ordered on Friday. He had his game on Monday. Sometimes you'll order on Monday and not get it till the next Monday, depending on, I do have, just so everyone knows, I do have a full-time job that actually pays the bills. As much as I'd love to spend more time doing that, we do spend as much time. And again, Maureen, my fiance, she's very detail oriented. So she actually builds cartridges with me and does all the labels and builds the boxes. So thanks to her as well. So, but we do offer a combo deal as well. So if you buy the cartridge, please just pay attention. There is a checkbox or a drop down that says you can add the digital copy as well. And that's always at a discount. And the digital copies are registered to you specifically. That's a nice way of saying that the ROM actually has a fingerprint in there that actually says, this is your
We'll
copy.
find you if you distribute.
Yeah, if it's on the internet for free to be distributed, you're going to be in trouble.
Exactly, but it's also, pride of ownership is probably a better way to put it. So give you, you paid the money for it, so you should protect it. It's just like anything, you go buy anything at the store, you're not going to leave it out in your driveway for anyone to take. You're gonna protect it. So we do offer that as well, and the ROMs are processed nightly. So if you order something from me in a ROM within 24 hours, 48 is our SLA. That's what we promise, but typically within hours you'll have the ROM to play as well. So
yeah. Well, I want to point out that James from Zero Page Homebrew has been here for a little bit, and he has popped in to say hi and wanted to let us know.
Hey James, how's it going? Yeah. Big shout out to James. He's been a real ambassador for the Atari homebrew community since he's joined our community he's been around for at least maybe 5-10 years, who knows? It's been forever, it seems. And Champ Games in particular, it's always been fun. We used to have a yearly secret reveal where that's where we revealed Galaga and Robot War and a few other games, Turbo as well. It's always fun, and his team is really dedicated to bringing the news and the excitement of new games for your Atari across all platforms. And they should be recognized for that. So thanks to James and his entire team. So. Well, and to you too, Phil, of course, and just all you guys. There's tons of guys that Mike, work that you do. Even Brian, making controllers. You get to see Misty's butt there. So
you should see my game room. I got shelves full of his controllers, man.
Yeah,
you would not believe.
Yeah, so thanks to all you guys. I mean, we all have a piece of making this Atari dream stay alive. It's not just the guy making the games; it's the guy buying the games, it's the guy supporting the games, so promoting the games, it's the guy making the controllers for the games or the hardware to play the games or the video mods. There's so many people out there that contribute to this hobby, and without us, it would have been dead a long time ago. It's amazing when you think that a game system release, coming up on 50 years ago, it's as strong as ever right now. I think it's actually stronger now than it was back when we were in the 80s. It's like more games get released, better games. There's more excitement it seems. Yeah. So
it's a whole community.
Absolutely,
yeah, it really is, and it's always growing. It's always growing. So that's good.
I don't know. I don't know how I could end with anything better than what you just said, John.
All right, good.
So, with that, I really appreciate you guys being here, John, special guest, and as always, Mike and Brian, my co-hosts. This has been a pleasure having you on here. And for those of you who do not know, we will have Bob DiCrescenzo on here in 2 weeks. I believe it is on the 12th.
Awesome.
For our podcast, but it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will be doing this all over again. So appreciate you guys being here. Let me get set here. At my age, things get a little crazy sometimes. But anyway, you guys take care. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. Take care. Bye.
Wonderful.